Whoa, what's the
Yo,
deal, bro?
cool, and you can hear me?
Yeah, everything good, everything good. How everything going on
Good.
your end, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good, bro. Another day.
Hey, you already
Another
know what
fucking
that
day.
is. So you know what's funny? I wonder,
Hmm.
I wonder if that's like a black thing.
Another
That's what,
day?
yeah, it's two things black people say, and they will never be good. Motherfuckers say, boy, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Either that
Nah,
or
you already know what somebody mean when they hit that bit too.
yeah, or another day. Yeah, but yo, man, so we got a lot of interesting things happening right now. And I guess in the Pelicans universe, you'll say NBA as a whole, but specifically in the Pelicans universe, Giannis, of course, has just been diagnosed with a short-term injury. So I don't know what the Bucks were actually pursuing, if they were actively pursuing a play-in spot, but I don't know. It just
I
seems,
doubt it.
yeah, it just seems rather unlikely. Now I do think the Bucks in a series right now, as is, would beat like the Raptors, or they could give a couple of teams like some headaches in that Eastern Conference.
Hmm.
But the Giannis thing has been choppy all season, and I have to ask you: are you prepared for another off season of Giannis watch? Because I'm not.
I ain't gonna lie. I don't really give a fuck. I hate to
Well,
say it that way because this at the end of the day, how many years Giannis got left on his deal?
I think two.
I'm gonna tell you why it don't matter to me. They ain't been good anyway.
That's one thing I used to kind of talk about with I think I was talking about it with Ross at one time. I was just like, I don't think Giannis is like a fascinating regular season player.
Mm.
And
Oh,
I
really?
well, my bad. Let me rephrase that. I don't
I
think
just said
Giannis.
what you mean.
No, what I mean, I don't think Giannis is a fascinating postseason player. And what
Mm.
I mean by that is, to me, Giannis just got the benefit of being in the right place at the right time once in his career, and it just all worked out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, if Kyrie doesn't land on Giannis's foot, now whether Giannis did it on purpose or not, who knows? But if Kyrie doesn't land on Giannis's foot, if Harden doesn't have the hamstring, if Joe Harris doesn't just totally shit the bed, if Kevin Durant told not on the line. There's so many avenues, so many realities, so many like timelines where Giannis just never makes the finals, period.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he made the finals, he handled his business. Make no mistake about it, handled his business like a big dog. But I don't see adding Giannis as like the key to a team going to the finals, unless it's like Detroit or some shit like that, a team that's already really good. But I just don't see Giannis as that type of player personally.
Uh, I ain't gonna lie. Giannis is a lot. Like if you put the right team around Giannis,
Mm-hmm.
I think Giannis can get it done because Giannis is just such a like Giannis is easily even his postseason numbers and stuff. Like he's just like the reason I think they more so won is because Chris Middleton was closing. You get what I'm saying?
That's why I think they won the year that they won it all. Chris Middleton
Yeah,
and Drew Holiday personally,
yeah.
and
Chris was
Giannis,
close.
of course, was Giannis for
Yeah,
sure.
Giannis, and that's the thing. Giannis is gonna be Giannis regardless. But it's getting to a point now where not that he don't impact winning because he does, but it's more so like it's kind of like it's getting to that KD effect. You know what I mean? Where
Mm,
like KD, you say what you want about KD, he got great numbers.
right,
Every like and you would look at him and he's phenomenal, right? But
right.
does it really impact winning? Not as much as it used to, and it's getting to that point to a degree with Giannis because I look at him and he's dominant. He's dominant. Don't get me wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
they haven't been. He's been hurt a lot more than he used to be. He's you know what I mean, and like even with the great numbers, when the last time we seen the Bucks, really feel like a real threat?
And I would say also, and it's funny that you mentioned KD, because I feel like Kevin Durant has always probably been the best scorer on a team
Hmm.
generally. but he's probably never been the most impactful
Player.
outside of the Golden State years. And I say that because people underestimate how good Kevin Durant was defensively in Golden State.
Mm-hmm.
The dude defensively in Golden State was an animal. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
shot
protecting the
blocking,
rim. That small ball
man.
five shit was elite.
Expect like with him at the helm, it was like, come on, man. Like he was doing this thing. But
Yeah, he's still
otherwise,
7 feet too.
yeah, he's still 7 feet, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think since then, it's like you go back to for all the success OKC had with Kevin Durant. That's one Finals appearance.
Right.
The Nets never really got it done. You know what I'm saying? You had the situation with Kyrie. You had the situation with Harden, of course. Then you got Phoenix.
But even
Uh,
still, like you, unfortunately, like not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but like even with those three, right? Like
right,
who you were gonna depend on? Like you depended on KD because you was able to depend on Steph. You
right.
was able to depend on Kyrie to a degree because you had Brian.
Harden and Bron, yeah.
Well, and then
Oh, you talking
Harden.
about Kyrie individually?
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
saying, like I'm thinking about that Nets team. You talk about the Nets team
right.
because this still don't mean that they get it done. And that's kind of my thing. Even if they stayed healthy, I don't know if they win. Harden could turn into Harden at any moment.
And
Again,
see,
what's hmm
go ahead, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying like Harden could be Harden whenever. While Kyrie, at the time had been phenomenal. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, but I'm mad about the whole Brooklyn tenure.
How
I ain't
that
gonna
went
lie.
down? Yeah, I think I think the issue with Kevin Durant as it currently stands, and the reason I brought up Giannis is because it's relevant to the Pelicans, right? But I,
Hmm.
I think the issue with Kevin Durant as it currently stands is, and I said this before, I was like, man, I think Kevin Durant is becoming like super talented Jamal Crawford. So what they're just like, it's
I
like
know what you mean.
he's just an incredible mercenary scorer, but he don't really impact the game in no other kind of way.
Mm-mm.
And to me, that's similar to Giannis in the sense to where it's like the defense fell off a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
with Giannis, it's still so difficult for you to score. Not that nobody can really stop you from doing what you want to do,
It's
but
Zion light though.
yeah,
You
it's
kind of you
Zion
gotta
like.
do it a certain kind of way.
Right, you got to do it a certain kind of way, and we didn't have to strip on you in the East your entire career. Like we just
Facts.
know how to stop you in the Eastern postseason. But what do you think if Giannis is ultimately traded this offseason? What do you think the Pelicans should do? Now we kind of know that they probably not going to tank, but do you think that's a situation where it's like, look, you better keep this pick, or do you think it's like, look, now I don't know who you could buy or what you could buy or what's available, but that pick needs to be on the move. What's your decision
It
making going into that?
so the if it's in the top four, we keep it or we lose it.
All
You
right.
keep it if it's top four, right?
Well, we keep it no matter what. Now, here's the thing: if the pick is in the top four for the Pelicans, right, it goes to the Pelicans. If
Mm-hmm.
the Pelicans pick is in the top four as well, the Pelicans keep both of the picks.
Mm.
But for example, if the pick is like top four and the Pelicans pick is like number six, I believe it's a swap, if I'm not mistaken. Like the Pelicans can choose. No, I think Atlanta just gets the worst of the pick.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta just gets the worst of that pick. So the Atlanta will get the Pelicans pick in that scenario, and the Pelicans will keep the Bucks pick. But if it lands in the top four, the Pelicans get both of them.
Okay.
So I mean, what would you do in that situation? Are you trading that pick? Are you tanking to try to secure top four picks, which would be kind of
Nah.
difficult to do? Or are you saying, all right, this pick got to go?
I think depends on how the season play out, to be honest, because I unless the Bucks are gonna be in a real tough situation, especially what the Dame did, money that they had. You'll have a lot of that getting like the Bucks don't have a lot of avenues to continue to get better. So
Right.
I rather they trade Giannis or not, I let that play out because I don't think they're gonna be good. Also with the Pelican situation, it's kind of like I personally think, bro, by like halfway during the season, we'll know what's gonna happen with us. I think they're gonna come into the season and try to compete. But if this start off the same way as like if next season start off like this season, they're gonna blow that shit up and go in the tank mode.
Now, let me ask you this, right? Because of course we've been seeing Dejounte play, and I think recently he's played well, especially the last 2.5 games.
Hmm.
Um, what is your take on the Dejounte situation and just Dejounte? Just of course we don't know Dejounte personally, but
Yeah.
how do you perceive his personality, team wise, and would you go into next season based on everything you know, saying, "I Dejounte is my point guard moving forward"?
So I'm torn on it, to be honest, because this is the thing. If and I did this on the show earlier too. Like, so it seemed like what Draymond said about the team was kind of right. Like, remember early in the season when he was like, "Man, the reason the team sucks basically is like Zion not the leader of the team, DeJounte the leader of the team," and
Okay.
that seemed relatively accurate, right? Like the attitude, demeanor, and stuff. Like seem like they just need somebody like that. So I don't necessarily know if I'm going into next season with DeJounte because I know chemistry matters, all of that stuff make a
Mm-hmm.
difference. Don't get me wrong. But if I could turn DeJounte into Ja, I'm turning DeJounte into Ja. You get what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Right,
So
right, right.
like that's kind of where I'm at. Like, or I don't mind keeping DeJounte if my big, like if I use my assets to get a center, like a quality starting center. Like that would be my,
Who would
you
you
know,
define? Who would you define as like your assets right now, and who would you define as like a quality starting center in your
I
opinion?
don't even know what I'm defining as assets. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know what I'm defining as assets, to be
Okay.
honest, because I I initially was like, so Ja seems like one of those players you might be able to get for somewhat of a deal.
Right.
If you could get Ja for a deal, then okay,
Hmm.
right? Like, so the assets might end up being if I could get Ja for Pool and something else and not none of my first or whatever, then okay. But
Hmm.
if I gotta give up something, I'd be willing to throw in Herb, but apparently Herb, but you get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
if I get like Ja for like Pool and something else, then okay, I think that's kind of like your asset pool. But if it's one of those things where I gotta give up
The
Trey or something
farm.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like no, I'm not doing that. So I think it depends on what you can realistically move and what you getting back. Like if I'm moving Pool to get something, I think that's your only real asset as far as like him being expiring and stuff like that. Like I think that's what we're determining as assets. You can't afford to give up picks for nothing.
Yeah.
So like what else do you have to trade unless you moving one of your quote unquote untouchables? And it's not saying that you can't, but I guess it depends on what you're moving them for.
For me, with the Dejounte thing, it's a funny situation because I don't believe nothing that Dejounte says. Right? Like, and it is rare that you encounter somebody like that as far as like from a player perspective. At this point, I've been covering basketball for a couple of years now, and I've been covering the
Hmm.
Pelicans for a couple of years. I don't think I've ever encountered a player where I'm like, yeah, you can't believe nothing he said. Oh,
Yeah.
like so the Dejounte being one of them players, it kind of makes me look at the situation like, all right, nothing has changed.
Hmm.
Right? Nothing has changed, and ultimately, you still have one foot out the door. I appreciate you being a professional and trying your best, but I also the reality of the situation is still right there. Like you're playing for a contract extension. Ultimately, you're trying to get yourself in a better situation. There wasn't much of a trade market for you this past deadline. Um,
Hmm.
Depending on who you believe, he may have been refusing to play. They may have been refusing to play him. Depends on who tells the story. It depends on who version of the story you hear last. And
I agree with all of that.
yeah, so it's kind of you're in a scenario to where it's like, all right, look, you still need to address that guard situation at some point this off season. Now you may start the season with Dejounte, but
Hmm.
ultimately, I think regardless of to me, the best case scenario is if you just move them beginning of the off season, and I say that because you don't want to have that built-in excuse during the season. Let's say you do start the season and you're playing well, then the deadline comes. You're like, all right, I got to move, homie. Like, you know what I'm saying? Nothing really changed. He want to go. I got to move him. Now you're talking
Hmm.
about messing with team camaraderie and just different things, right? Or you're talking about maybe you're kicking the can into the following off season. It just and then where he has a player option, so that becomes an issue as well. As far as like in a pursuit of a guy like Ja or any type of like front court or back court help, I still kind of view the assets. I view Herb as less of an asset than he was. I saw Keith Smart post something today, and
Yeah,
I'm like, Keith,
I saw that.
you don't watch the Pelicans, like, and that's the sad part about being a team in a small market without like a broad fan base is that you can post something miscellaneous, and it's like if you don't watch the Pelicans, what you just said has no relevance.
But what's interesting about that is
Mhm.
if let's say that that's the consensus about Herb throughout the league, then
Mhm.
realistically, like Herb still would have value.
You know, this is why I would disagree to an extent. I don't think he doesn't have value. I
Hmm.
just think he has less value.
Okay, gotcha.
But just because of the contract, like next year will be his last year, going from like
Going, he
what.
on the 14 mil next year.
Right, and then it'll balloon to 20, and you might view that some might view that as a poison pill. He's going to be
Hmm.
28 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Shooting across the board has been bad. I'm sure the Pelicans are near the bottom of the league on the whole season defensively. And again, Borrego had 70 something games, so ultimately it doesn't matter if you say, well, in the last 12 games they're number one in the league defensively. It's like, yeah, but they played 82 of them bitches.
Let me ask you this quick question: when you talking about like trade assets and stuff and how you view Dejounte, if they
Mhm.
said we'll do Ja for Dejounte and Herb straight up, I think the money kind of like it's kind of close because Dejounte gonna be like around close to 30, and then
Mhm.
Herb 14 put you at what 44 or something like that. I think Ja
Mhm.
somewhere around there. Would you do that straight up? Because I feel like with
Mm.
Ja's value, people will be like, you gave up Dejounte, who last seen was giving you 30 something. You know what I mean? Oh, that's the core of the team. And then with Ja's perceived value, and a lot of people don't think Ja's as good as he's been. You know what I mean?
Right,
How
right.
do you think that would look? Or do you think that like how do you think that deal would go? Or like is that a quality deal? Or is that like you losing out on that type of deal? If you were to turn DeJounte and Herb into a Ja.
Well, I view it like this: would you trade Zion today? And I'm going to answer your question, but I view it the same way as this: would you trade Zion for the Dejounte and Herb?
No.
No, that's kind of how I view it because we're about 2 years removed, about 2 years from Ja being like a guy, like you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying,
Right.
and not just a guy that was making the postseason, a real deal box office person.
Right.
Recently, Zion has played more games than Ja, but I mean, if we
Historically.
historically, it's about what and what at this point, and then I always like to view it as the best case scenario. Like if I
Hmm.
compared Herb and DeJounte's best case scenario to Ja Morant, it's not even close. Like truthfully, and with Ja, even if you talk about the cons, DeJounte's missed a lot of games over the last 2 seasons. He had one really serious injury, then he had one injury that was kind of bad for his breaking his wrist. Herb's missed a
Hmm.
bunch of games this season, missed a bunch of games last season. So you can't really point to help. You can't really point to Herb's defense. And with, I guess you could say with DeJounte, I don't know if it'll be tangibles or intangibles. Let's just say offense for offense, they're about what and what. But DeJounte is averaging close to 4 turnovers a game right now. So
Hmm.
I don't know if his ball distribution and, you know,
We talk about compared to Ja.
yeah, compared to Ja. So,
Listen, man, I'm sorry. I like DeJounte. And it's even DeJounte playing well. Bro, if you like, I know people down on Ja. Ja's still like 20, like 20, like 24 and 8.
right.
like when last I'm sorry, when last seen, bro, if you go look up like Ja's last couple games and shit like that, it's still elite player now. Now, he might not be, at one point you was looking at him as like top, arguably
Top
face of the
10,
league.
yeah, top 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
top 10, pushing top 5, top 7 is something like that.
Hmm.
He might not be that, but if he top 20, like, here's a
And that
question. I'm sorry.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. One more, because do you view trading for Ja as an all-in move? Somebody said that earlier too, and I wondered like if that's a great. I don't know how to answer that question. Do you view trading for Ja a all-in move?
No.
Okay.
I say it because he's a distressed asset. Like
Mm,
if he was the Ja of old, and he was if we had all the other pieces in place, like if Detroit, for example, they wouldn't trade for Ja Morant, but if they traded for a Ja caliber player, like
mm-hmm.
talent wise, to me that'd be an all in move for them. But if I'm the Pelicans and I trade for Ja, I'm like, cool. Now I still got to answer a few other questions. But if this go right with Ja, at least I should be able to float in the water. I shouldn't just totally sink to the bottom of the ocean, with this
Right.
with this team. Because I'm like this, man. Make no mistake about it. If you look at the schedule and the teams that the Pelicans have played, only one of those teams are really a team that's like competing for the playoffs that they beat as of late.
The Raptors.
Yeah, the Raptors, whereas
Mm-hmm.
everyone else is actively tanking. Like Dallas on the second night of back to back, who's
Mm-hmm.
tanking. You lost twice to Milwaukee, who's tanking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you lost to the Suns, who like playoff teams. You lost to the Lakers, who's a playoff team. You lost to Houston, who's a playoff team. You beat the Jazz twice, who's tanking. And it's like you beat the Wizards, and it's like, yeah, you could pound your chest or what have you, but it's like you ain't beat nobody that didn't let you win.
I've been
Even
making that.
Atlanta.
Yeah,
I'm talking about not Atlanta, the Wizards.
I've been making that point, and I'm I'm kind of like I can't give too much credence to the second half of the season. Like visually, do they look better? Yes, right. But like for example, the Suns game, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like you kind of was like down more. Like you made it close at the end, but you kind of was losing the whole game. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I can't really put too much stock in that when you was getting beat pretty much the whole game. Now the Houston game, I give you credit because I feel like y'all should have won that one.
Yeah,
Okay, like
yeah.
and that would
Very
have been the
questionable
second.
calls at the end.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
been the second time you would have beat Houston in the season, regardless of what we think of Houston. People consider Houston a contender, so I give you
Mm-hmm.
like marks for that. But see this stretch they got coming up right now, like what do you think of the stretch they got coming up right now?
But
You got the Clippers on a back to back, then you got um let me see, you got the Clippers on a back to back, you got fucking Detroit, you gotta go on the road for, you got the Knicks you on the road for, you go back to Toronto. Like if what do you think of this stretch coming up? Or does it actually matter?
I'm gonna answer this and I'm gonna pass it to John afterwards. To me, it doesn't really matter because we kind of saw this last year when the Pelicans beat the Timberwolves. They were competitive in a couple games when Zion came back, and it's like it didn't carry over. You know what I'm saying? You still have to add talent ultimately, and another part of it is it's all about when you play teams, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like playing teams before All Star break. Motherfuckers tired. Motherfuckers not really trying. And
Mm-hmm.
like as the Pelicans go into the end of this season, like the last 7 games or so, people are not gonna be trying, bro. Like
Mm.
nobody really gonna care. Like you know what I'm saying? Like nobody really gonna. It's the effort not gonna be there. The team's gonna be getting ready for the postseason, or they're gonna be getting ready for Cancun. Like they're not really tripping. The Pelicans might be one of the few teams that's actively trying because of their
This
lottery situation.
situation.
But it's like again, it's like you play Dallas on the second night of a back to back. No, I don't think Gafford played. No Lively, no
Mm-hmm.
Clay.
Right.
It's like no Kyrie. Their best player is a rookie and Najee. And it's like I expect you to beat the dog shit out that team. Just on paper, I expect you to
Right.
win those games.
I expect you to win. I said they have. I'm sorry, and I know you said you was gonna pass the Giants. So just
Mm,
get this. They
Good.
have what 15 games left, 15, 16 games left, something like that.
Yeah,
Most
roughly
of
that. Yeah.
those games, like other than the game against, they play Utah again, they play Sacramento again. Uh, they play.
Even the Clippers.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
play
I don't
Portland
have to beat
again.
them. Like,
I said that about the Clippers. I don't think the Clippers are like a great team, and we historically play well against them. But like, in word was, Kawhi might be out. You know what I
mhm.
mean? So like, I don't know if I give those wins too much. If they do win, too much value. But it's more so like, bruh, y'all could possibly end the season with like 27, 28 wins. I only like counted like maybe 4 wins the rest of the way, unless they do something against
Right.
like Cleveland is the next one. They go Clippers, Clippers, Cleveland. Then you go on the road to Detroit, New York, and Toronto. Then you got Orlando. Like, come on, bro. But go ahead, my bad.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna pass it to John, and then we'll go through and break down the schedule. John, what's happening with you, brother?
Yo, I just wanted to say I appreciate there being a Pelican space. We're not really talked about enough. As far as a move for Ja, I don't know if it necessarily signals that it's a push all in, but I think it at least signals that we're a team that is trying to improve. And that's important because sometimes we make moves that are just kind of like, what are we doing? Um, I think whether you keep Dejounte or Ja, I think if you can manage to swing either one of those, it brings grit and tenacity. Our None of our guys are bullies. Like Zion's the nicest bully ball player I've probably ever seen in my life. Um, there's no, he ain't got it in him. You know what I mean? Um, so I'm fine if we can keep Dejounte and for just personality vibe. Uh, but a move for Ja, I'm not against it at all. I think that a lot of what's going on in Memphis, I think people point at Ja and say he didn't really have it. He's had some injury concerns and some kind of just unfortunate things, but the Grizzlies as a whole, they've kind of been a mess coaching wise. So I think that could be a direct correlation on how they're viewed because they've moved pieces as well. So the team was depleted of some of its talent, whether they were role players that played at a really good clip for their position. I think that unfortunately Ja has suffered a good bit of that because the team around him has declined. The coaching has been up and down and moved around. So I don't know. I'm for keeping Dejounte if he wants to be here and if he's going to continue to play with the same fire that he has. But if you make a move for Ja, a relocation, we've seen other players kind of return to form with a new space to kind of maintain. So I'm with it either way.
I think John makes an excellent point. Appreciate your perspective, John. I think John makes an excellent point, especially as it pertains to the Grizzlies, their coaching situation. You had they let go of Taylor Jenkins last year. The interim was eventually hired to be the head coach, if I'm not mistaken. Initially started the season with some weird minutes restriction with Ja that Ja totally didn't agree with, and they literally started the season with just a mountain of injuries, bro. Like you talking about Ty Jerome with the calf injury. You talk about Brandon Clark, Scottie Pippen Jr. Ja had a hamstring in the preseason. Jaron Jackson Jr. made it back to the regular season just in time. Zach Edey came back, looked dominant, went back out. Williams, Gigi Jackson, like just a mountain of injuries. And the thing that really left me the most discouraged about the Pelicans and the coaching staff in particular here is that they had more injuries than the Pelicans, and they had won twice as many games and had already beaten the Pelicans twice. So that's what really blew my mind looking at the Wizards and how far away the Pelicans were as a coaching staff, in my opinion.
Let,
Um,
let me
Go
pose a
ahead.
question real quick. Because John did make a good point when it was like, man, this team don't play with enough tenacity, right? Like enough toughness. If there was an avenue, and I'm not saying you do this, but if there was an avenue where you could get where you could get Ja and keep Dejounte, would you consider that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm with the attitude. Look, keep the black jerseys. Rename the. I don't care. The Pelicans don't strike no fear in nobody's heart. I'm glad that she was like, oh, ties to the state with the bird and the former major league team here, bro. Keep the black jerseys. Lean into the voodoo vibe, bro. Just, just rebrand it, bro. Just let the old that is not working go, and just bring in a bunch of guys that just my kid's in the car, so I can't use all the language I want to use, but you know what I mean. Like bring some edge, man. Like we're a small market team. New Orleans is a gritty place to begin with. Well, so we don't need to be these nice, friendly guys, man. I want to see Zion put a shoulder through somebody, stand over them. Like, stop letting people think that they can foul you the way they foul you and get away with it. You ain't always got to walk away. Match your online persona.
One
Just
thousand percent agree.
Yeah, I agree with John. As far as I would love to see a attitude shift, man. And if depending on who you hire as a coach, sometimes it doesn't come from the coach. Sometimes it has to be in the players already, as far as just how they view themselves. I think with the Dejounte situation is, I just think just that's when it goes back to, man. I don't know if I believe anything Dejounte says because just historically, I think he's the kind of guy who, if it's working, everybody's happy. But the minute the shot diet goes down, or the minute you lose a couple games in a row, the minute things shift, and he's not a key component or a key factor in what the team is doing, that's when the break starts to happen. And allegedly, that's been some of the issue with him from last year to this year. Just sometimes feeling like I'm not the star here. Not the star as far as like you should be accommodating me at a certain marquee level, but the star as in like, if I'm hypothetical, this is hypothetical. You know what I'm saying? That's not hypothetical. It's what I heard. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it's what I heard. I don't know how true it is. Let's just say if Zion is like on a massage table, hypothetically, right? He on a massage table, and he doing his thing, and Dejounte walks in, and he's like, "Yo, what's up with me?" And he like, they gonna be like, "Yo, you gotta wait. Like, you gotta wait, or you need to come back." Or let's say Zion is late for his treatment, and Dejounte is on the table. When Zion walk in, Dejounte, you got to get up. You got to get up and go. And he don't respond well to that, from what I'm told, like from behind the scenes. So I don't know if you add Ja to this scenario,
Ooh.
then it's like it's two people, if just two ahead of you in the pecking order. So I don't know, man. You hear these things, these stories from behind the scenes. You don't know how true they are, but this is just what I've heard. Things like that have happened. When he talked about table time,
Hmm.
those are more so the situations.
Uh, well, well, I don't know. I just find it interesting to kind of discuss it because it's more so like you need as much you need as much talent as possible, especially going into like ending the season. I don't care how they finish the season, to be honest. Somebody said this early on Twitter and was kind of like, look, I don't care if they win every game the rest of the way. They still kind of will want they will want a new coach or something like that. And to a degree, I'm like, bruh, as long as the idea is to add talent or add as much talent as possible, then that's all I really care about. So like if there was an avenue where you could add Ja while keeping DeJounte, I'm taking it and I'm not really worrying about the ego of it or the feelings of it because I got to do whatever I got to do to acquire as much talent as possible. And like I know people care about the fit and the fit matters, but when you've been, you know, again, man, this is gonna go to 2 seasons in a row where like you haven't you haven't like your season has been over by like November. You know what I mean? Like that's remarkably bad.
Right.
So I don't know. Go ahead.
And I'm about to pass it to the homie Mike. What up with you, Mike? Like, and here's the thing. And I ain't trying to shit on Dejounte at all, because again, I really advocated for them to trade for Dejounte, but it's like I, I saw you play a lot last year, so it's not a situation I can understand from an attitude standpoint. The way it's like his leadership and his intangibles and some of his play, but it's like Dejounte played quite a bit last year, and he just wasn't very good. You know what I'm saying? So I say that from the standpoint of how people say this is what the team's been missing, and it's like, uh, I guess, like if you, I suppose. I mean, he played last year. He wasn't missing last year up until the eventual Achilles injury. Yeah, he had the hand injury, but I'm talking about like when he had the big injury. He was here. You ain't really look that great, but
Do you think part of it is just being so bad as they've been?
Um, yeah, I think just having some semblance of competent guard play, another guy who can get you 20, a person who's a professional, like he knows how to play basketball, he's played at a high level, he knows how to play defense. I think his defense it's been okay as far as like him getting into the passing lane and getting deflections. I think on ball perimeter defense across the board has been. We at the point where I ain't gonna lie. I think Zion been one of our best perimeter defenders as far as like
Hmm.
sitting down and guarding your man. Because this year it's been bad. Like it's been really bad perimeter defense across the board. Um, but yeah, I just think it's one of those things where it's like a lot was made about his return. He looks better than he looked the last time you seen him, and he got fresh legs. A lot of other people don't, and you happen to run into some bad teams, some get right teams. There's a lot
Mm,
of factors playing to his advantage, and I just think he's taking advantage of that personally.
mm. That's
Mike,
interesting.
Mike, what's happening with your homie? He probably can't hear me. Jerome Morgan, you there, bro? Oh, he probably can't hear me. He might have put the phone down for a second. So,
Mm.
Al, what's your perspective on like what do you think they're thinking far as like the organization? Do you think the organization is buying the hype that some of us might push on Twitter? Some of us might be excited about certain things. Do you think they see it in the same
I
way?
see.
Like for example, like with Carlo and me, see, do you think they're seeing it the same way, or what do
Nope.
you think they're looking at?
Nope. I don't think they see. I don't think they see it the same way. If I'm being
Man,
honest.
what's good with y'all, fellas?
What's good, Mark?
Whoa, what's good with you,
Man,
Mike?
chillin', man. Man. I gotta come stir it up a little bit, stir the pot up.
Okay.
Man, so y'all know since Herb Jones been, I ain't gonna start that. But man, look. So since the All Star break, I wanted y'all a question. I think we'll be like 8-4 or something since the All Star break, 8-5, something like that. Um, y'all opinion, bro. I know, Al, man, you asked earlier if Borrego get the 30 wins, do we think he should stay? And bro, I kind of feel like no, because bro, like in the meat and potatoes of the season, dog, we struggle. Win two, lose four. Win three, lose six. It's like, nah, bro. We gotta evolve, man. I think it's time for this whole coaching staff to go, bro.
I
I really think it's time
1000%.
to shake it up,
Oh,
man.
okay.
You know
I
what I
about
mean? Like a few pieces on a roster. Like what I see is, bro, like, yes, the Pelican, like, okay, I give Borrego some credit. Yes, the Pelicans have improved. But first off, like Joe and Troy philosophy, bro, they want two bigs on the court at the same time. Borrego wants to play small ball. So first off, that's the reason I don't think it will work. They want two bigs on the court. Borrego wants to play small ball. And like, bro, to be honest, to be competitive like in the West and the league, period, bro, that small ball shit dead. That been dead 2 years ago.
I think you only could play small ball if you got like a very special kind of.
like
person.
Scotty Barnes or somebody like at power forward that's getting 60. Like you got to have a strong rebounding team.
I don't even know if Scotty Barnes that kind of guy, but I get the gist of
Man,
what you
nah,
of
bro,
what
I
you
bet I didn't
mean.
see him some games, bro. Man, look, nah, they didn't have some games, bro. He 14, 15, 16. But, like, you can't do that all the time.
No, you can't play small ball five like for an extended period, in
And
my
I remember
opinion.
Chaz asked, like, 2 months ago, he was like, hey, if we had a bona fide center, will Borrego use him? Bro, I'm kind of 50-50. Because even with Charlotte, dog, like, even his days back with Orlando, Borrego was not a fan of bigs.
I, I think Borrego's style. I can't say what he would or what. Well, I could say, I guess. I think if Borrego had a center, and let's just use, and I like to use this particular player because unless you have a stretch, right? Like what kind of center are you talking about? You have more traditional centers, I think, than like people that are like
So,
actual stretches. So let's say Jared Allen. If somehow they traded for Jared Allen this off season, right? Do you think we would maximize a player like Jared Allen with Borrego? That's a question for y'all.
Oh, for me, I'll say this. I'm gonna say no, right? And the reason I'll say no because I don't think the Pelicans are, you know, in this pick and roll heavy team. Typically they don't use their best or most advantageous players in the actions. Like, and the guys who, for me, when it comes to the center position or bigs generally, uh, it's like we've been asking all season for you to give Eve Messi and Carlo more minutes.
Mm,
Not that Eve Messi nor Carlo are the de facto answer. No one's saying that, right? But they're one of your better options. So for myself, when I see you finally give them minutes and it appears to be working, albeit against tanking teams, I don't view that as a coaching uh progression or phenomenon. I view that as if you tried everything in your power not to do the right thing. And
mm.
now that you got left with virtually no choice but to do it, it's like, oh, now it's working. Like, you know what I'm saying? Or it
It,
works occasionally.
yeah,
And
I get what you
yeah.
mean. That's kind of where I stood on it as far as like the center thing, and you know how much Troy Weaver like loves centers and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of like if they had the guy like early in the season, I think if you was gonna play Queen, I think you knew to maximize Queen, you needed another big next to him. You
Right.
refused. So like you've seen the evidence consistently throughout the season to kind of know what Borrego would do in certain situations because of the style he wants to play. And the style he wants to play, I don't think is the most conducive for this team to be successful. So that's kind of why, like, even if he were to win, 30 games or whatever, I think I've already seen enough. It would depend on how the 30 games looked, I guess. You
Well,
know what I mean?
yeah, to me, I I would still say if he were to win 30, you're below 500, bro. You had 70. Like, you know
True,
what I'm saying?
true.
And we don't got to
Got
get into the
spotted too.
yeah, you got spotted too. And I don't got to, we don't even got to get into the fourth quarter blown leads and things of that nature. And to me, it's just when I view Borrego, it's like the goal isn't be better than Willie Green. The
That's
goal is
my big thing.
yeah,
Yes.
the goal is to be good. If you're not good, then I don't care if you're better than a bad coach. Like, I
Hmm.
want you to be good. And if you can't maximize guys, strengths that, like, I can easily say, well, Borrego's had a healthier roster. He's had a healthier roster against weaker teams.
Hmm.
He didn't have to play. I think he coached against Boston once. Willie Green coached against Boston once. Early in the season, it was a gauntlet of teams that Willie Green went through with a roster that wasn't necessarily healthy. Borrego at this point, he has a pretty much 100% healthy team.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Aside from the guys he may not want to put into the rotation for whatever reason, like if they just not playing well. But you got a 100% healthy team. I expect you to be somewhat better. but are you good? Because good has to be the bar. And I want to allow John to answer your question as well. John, what you got, fam?
Bro, Borrego, thank you for stepping in this year. Um, it's more of the same, bro. I don't understand how a team with the caliber athletes and the playmaking ability that some of these guys have, that we are the anti Golden State Warriors. Remember, Golden State at their heyday would come out in that third quarter and just shoot you out the game, bro. How many leads have we given up in the third quarter this year, and only to make a push in the fourth quarter to blow it again on the back half of the quarter? That's not good
I
coaching.
believe the last count was 16, I believe. It's either 15 or 16.
And don't forget, some of these have been 20-point leads at the half that we've come back and lost by 10 points. Like, I'm good on that. There's other coaches out there. It's wash and repeat. I'm not. It's time for a new day in Pelicans basketball, man. There's too many good coaches out there that I would rather at least we're taking a shot at it. Like, I don't want to go into next year knowing that we probably shouldn't have kept this coach, only to make the decision halfway through the year that we're not going to keep him, and then we're back to the same old status quo. Like, it's time to just go out and be serious about wanting to compete. And I don't think I like Borrego, but I don't think he does it. He's not it for me.
Shout out to you, man. Once again, I agree with John. Oh, my bad, Mike. Let me see. I don't know why Mike keep dropping. Mike, what's your Mike? If you can hear me, what's your thoughts on Elvin's position? Do you think Borrego has like maximized guys at this point?
I would say, like Sadiq Bey, I would say, to be honest, I would say no.
Okay.
And the reason I would say this is because all these guys, I mean, I think it had got to a point where they just like kind of started tuning Willie out. But bro, like man, like Zion was playing. Remember it was like the second game of the season. Z dunked on Wemby twice. Kind of had the game winner, but the team gave up a three to Castle to win the game. Trey started off fierce, and Queen started off the year great. Well, Willie was. So the players were already playing at this level. I think now, I really don't think it has anything to do with coaching. I think it's them together, like, like playing more together as a group. But, like, bro, if you join Troy, bro, you got a clean house. You cannot go down with this ship. You got to get your own people, bro.
That's
Because
that,
let's say next year, bro, you got the same record, but you can't blame that on nobody. You decided to keep Borrego and them.
I totally agree with. I totally agree with you there,
You
bro.
gotta
Because
get your own staff, bro. You can be like, hey, and like John said, hey, look, shit. At least we swung the bat. At least we went after who we wanted. Even if we failed, hey, we went after it. But like, dog, you can't stay complacent, bro. You don't get like sports or life, bro. You don't get nowhere like that. I ain't trying to preach, my bad. But like, bro, you gotta
nah,
go make your move.
you're 100% right. Because ultimately, to your point, I'm gonna pass it to the sports. Ultimately, to your point, it's like if you fail next year with this same coaching staff, we're not gonna care that you inherited the staff again. It's like no, at this point, it's your decision. You use that excuse once with Willie Green. We're not trying to hear that again. L, what you got, big dog?
Before you pass it, that's actually the point. One of the main points that I kind of wanted to make, and why I think they make a change regardless of what Borrego does, because like let's say you decide to go through interviews and stuff like that. In order to keep Borrego, you gotta sign him to an extension. It's not like he gonna sign a 1 year deal, or you know what I mean? It's not like fucking players that sign like a 1+1 or something like that, right? So if you decide to commit to Borrego, you committing like 4 years of resource, like 4 years of Borrego. And I just don't think that Joe and Troy, in their first opportunity in which this season they said, look, we just trying to see what's going on, are going to come in and say, all right, based off what you've done this year, even with how they look, right? Even if they win, they could win out the rest of the way. Like, I can't imagine Joe and Troy tying themselves to Borrego for the next 3 years, 4 years, because if you do go in the next season and it starts off looking anything like it did this year, you already know like kind of the situation that you're in. Historically, James isn't like somebody who's been to the playoffs, so it's not like you just got this, resume to lean on that he'll be able to figure it out and bounce back. And it's not to say, again, it's not to say that he's a awful coach or whatever just because he's better than Willie, but you can't commit to signing him for 3 or 4 more years when, unless you about to tear this shit down, like unless the plan is to rebuild, then okay. But again, the pushback to rebuilding is, if you're gonna rebuild, you probably want to rebuild with your own guy to do his own philosophy and instill his own principles. So like either way I look at it, it's kind of like I just can't imagine them signing on for another 3 or 4 years. That's my last point.
And also, like, based on your tenure in Charlotte, who says you're the guy to lead a rebuild? Like, you know what I'm saying? Well, yo, let's sports. What you got, big dog?
Well, what up, fellas? Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, you all good, homie.
Man, I'm neutral on Borrego right now, man. I'm not gonna lie. I see a lot of good habits being built. Not great habits, but from where we were, I see a lot of good habits being built. Um,
Before you continue, let me
hell-
ask you a question, bro.
oh,
Do you think like the good habits being built are specific to Borrego, or any good coach would teach those same good habits?
I think any good coach would teach those good habits, but I don't think any good coach will come to the Pelicans. From the options that I've been hearing, Darvin Ham, I'm out on that. I mean, he may end up being a better coach than he was with the Lakers, but I don't want to be the one to find out. I see Borrego building some good habits, man. These guys they don't have no reason to be playing hard right now, but they playing hard. So that's my only point, really.
Well, you know what? Shout out to the sports. Now, I'll counter with this as far as like when you speak about reasons for them to play hard. You got a Zion who looking for a new contract. You got Dejounte looking for a new home, new contract. Jordan Poole ain't in the rotation, but if he was in the rotation, he'd be looking for a new contract. You got a few guys looking to get that bread. Carlo, next year is the last year of his deal. He's gonna be looking for a new contract. Like the Pelicans kind of getting to a point where they got to start shedding some fat because Bryce's contract next year is guaranteed. You got to extend Carlo. You got to extend Sadiq Bey pretty soon. Sadiq Bey is another guy playing for $6 million this year, $6 million next. He gonna be looking for a new deal too. There's a lot of money on the line right now.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah, like, it's a big bread on the line. Al,
Uh,
what do you think about that? As far as like potentially the guys you would like to keep moving forward, and them probably needing contract extensions sooner than later.
I'm of the mindset that like every player on this team has something, because we talking like shout out to mentioning like the playing hard, bruh. A lot of these dudes, in a sense, are playing for like your NBA life to a degree. Like Zion, if he don't prove that he's healthy, right? You're not getting another max deal, bro. So you absolutely have to show right now what it is you look like. And then because typically when people sign their extensions, it's like year two of, like when you got 2 years left on a deal or something like that. Because once you get to that last year, bro, most people, like, it's really hard to get a deal done in the last year of a deal unless you just, you know, like a top player or something like that. But this is probably DeJounte's last real
Yeah, like
contract. And
max level deal. Yeah.
yeah, his last max level deal. Trey just got on his money. Who else?
Herb just
Herb
got on
got
his money.
who?
Herb just got on his money a year ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Herb just got on his money, and shit. He got his money, but you see what happened. He got his money, and he done kind of came back to the pack a little bit. Poole, like while he's not playing, he's probably never gonna see 30 million again. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of these dudes going into next season, it also makes sense as to why you see Sadiq playing as well as he's playing, because again, it's bruh, like he's like tore the ACL, career almost was over, and you only on a $6 million deal. Like imagine if Sadiq don't play as well as he have this year and next year. Like it's probably gonna be, a rough situation for him too.
Yeah.
So I just think majority of these dudes like are playing hard and stuff because one, in New Orleans, like another thing in New Orleans is that like the expectation in New Orleans isn't high. Like, yeah, you wanna like yeah, you wanna play to win, don't get me wrong. But bro, we talking about just winning 30 games. Like, can we just win 30 games and the coach might get a job? Or if you just look competent, you might get a contract extension. So it's similar to like with Brandon. Like Brandon got offered 50 million for averaging 20 points a game. So it's just my thought is as far as like the contract situation and a lot of these dudes is just kind of like, no, what else are they gonna do? Because in other organizations, a lot of these dudes would probably like it just wouldn't be tolerable. Like it just wouldn't be tolerable. Like, and you have to play a certain type of way. A lot of them on the like a lot of them on the back ends of their careers. Like, not saying they won't be able to play, but as far as like from the money and extension aspect, you already see fucking Cam Thomas couldn't get no money. Kaminga fighting for money. Like they
Tyree
cracking down
Tyree Eason
on
lost a lot of money.
yeah, Tari Easton lost money. They cracking down on everybody moving forward. So like you better do what you gotta do to prove yourself to have some value or nobody getting paid.
Yo, I agree with you, man. Brandon, what's up with your homie?
Top of the evening, man. Top of the evening. Hope everybody had a great St. Patty's Day. I see you, Shifty. I see you, baby. Listen, man. I'm happy we having this space to having this conversation about the Pels, man. I'm gonna just keep it a bean. First and foremost, they got to get a coach. I've been very critical on this app and many other places that I have no beef with James Borrego, but to me, Joe Dumars wasted the season. When you fired Willie Green after 10 games, my first objective was if you make this fire, go find you a coach. I'm not promoting, and that James Borrego would have been a temporary head coach. He'd been an interim guy, but he would have never coached to me, which is going to be almost 72 games. He wouldn't have coached that much because you didn't get to learn anything. He was on a roster as an assistant head coach for 2 seasons, right? So when you just promote him to head coach, whatever been going on has been going on. It's not going to change. You get what I'm saying? Now you got to ask yourself the other elephant in the room. The next head coach you bring in, Zion Williamson, believe it or not, is going into season 8, starting next year, with no playoff appearances. The team had 2 playoff appearances. He's been on the roster, but he was injured for those, right? He hasn't played in a playoff game yet. What player do you know when a franchise draft this guy as the number 1 pick, stays on the franchise in season 8, and he hasn't made a playoff appearance yet? I'm dying.
I think
If someone to tell me who that person would
wouldn't be number 1.
De'Aaron Fox maybe before
It might be,
De'Aaron Fox in
but
Sacramento maybe
or maybe
but
Booker.
he went 5th overall. He didn't go
number
first.
one.
Yeah, I mean,
Who was
I
first?
think you take the injuries into account, but your point still stands.
And so my thinking is this: if Zion Williamson is still our best player going into the 2027 season, it's a bad year. Keep in mind, Zion Williamson has played. I did the math on this up. I got how many games he this year, but he's 34% when he's on the floor, and they're 17% when he's not on the floor. So to me, this is my outlook on Zion Williamson.
That's win percentage, Brandon.
Yes,
Okay.
win percentage. 34 so far this year. 34% when he's on the floor, 17% when he's not on the floor. Regardless of how you want to scratch it, it's a poor record. The reality of the matter is this: whether you think Zion's a good basketball player or not a good basketball player, that's all subjective. But if he's still your best player starting next season, the season's hopeless to me. And it's not because of his durability no more. It's about the fact that at the end of the day, him being on the floor doesn't help this team win games. If he's your best player. If he's going to be on his basketball team, they got to find a player whose ceiling is higher than his.
Let
Bottom
me
line.
ask you a question, Brandon. I don't want to cut you off because you was
Shoot,
making
shoot,
a lot of great
shoot,
points. But this is a
shoot.
question because
Ask the question. Ask the question.
I think this year, to me, on this team, proved that I don't think Zion is a 1A kind of player, right? So
Agreed.
let's say okay, that's established. Do you think in this NBA, any team can win games with like a single best player as the best player? Because as I look around the league, it it
It's
takes
difficult to do. It's difficult to
yes.
do.
So like even
You
if
get you get a Minnesota every now and then, but that's hard to maintain.
But even with Minnesota, like Ant being the best player, it's still Julius Randle, Rudy
Right.
Gobert has a great resume. Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, you got great coaching. Like more so, the league landscape now is, bro. You need a team. Like you need a team. We just had the conversation about Giannis. Like how much of a difference does Giannis make by himself? Because we talking about even if Giannis healthy, what are the Bucks gonna look like next season? So I'm
It
just
don't matter.
asking.
If he has no supporting cast, it ain't because the league is younger. Teams like Detroit, especially, I believe it or not, this year to me, this is my outlook. The Eastern Conference is a tougher conference than the West this season, not
I no, I agree
historically.
with you. I agree
This
with you.
season,
So I just my question more so is I agree. Like if Zion is your best player, I
you're
don't
not
think
going to
you're gonna.
you're not going
No,
nowhere.
I don't think you're gonna do much. But like, do you feel it's more so one of those? Do you think it's possible to supplement a player like Zion with enough good players for it to make a difference?
Well, the way the roster is constructed right now, no. But the problem is, if I'm the ownership in Joe Dumars, because Gail Benson has made it very clear that this is Joe Dumars' decision, I'm moving on. And I'm moving on with the understanding that Derek Queen is going to be the focal point at my 4/5 pot. Derek Queen is a better basketball player than Zion. He's not a better athlete. In terms of a skill set, Derek Queen does more as a basketball player than Zion. If Zion can't get to the rim, then Zion, there's not much that he does to change the game if he's not getting to the rim, right? That part about his game has been the same since he's gotten to the NBA, and it still looks the same now. Not that he can't shoot a mid-range shot, not that he can't shoot a three. It's not his game. So I would start this with a younger head coach, and I would start this with Zion Williamson not being the team, and Derek Queen will be the focal point at the 4/5. If you start Messi next year, then he's the 4. Derek Queen is kind of like he's a Boogie Cousins like to me, or he could be a Boogie Cousins, or he could be a Nikola Jokic. So what kind of coach you want to put around him to figure out which one of these ceilings he could be? Because he could be either one. He could go either direction. The coaching is going to matter, right? Now, Jeremiah Fears looks like a young and promising guard, right? So they made two very good selections in those two guys. I'm building with those two guys, in addition to Trey Murphy. Now, from that point on, everybody else, and it's going to sound crazy, and this includes Herb Jones, everyone else in this roster is an expendable player. And not to say that those three guys that just mentioned are not. They're expendable too. But I'm starting the year. Everybody else that's not named them three, I'm trying to get them off my team. I'm going young. I'm going young. See, Dejounte
You,
Murray, as much as I like him,
what's your expectations for that team? Like, what would be your expectations for that team?
if I'm getting rid of guys like Zion, I'm getting rid of Dejounte Murray and Jordan Poole.
Yeah, like your expectations and your timeline.
Okay, my first year, I hired a new coach. My expectations first year, we win 25 games. Next year, 40. After that, I want you to be a top 6 seed. It's a 3-year turnaround. 3 years. I'm watching the Atlanta Hawks right now. They're going to be a dangerous team. They may not be this juggernaut team going through the East like how Indiana caught a lot of teams by surprise, which Indiana was very good, by the way. But if you look at that Hawks team, how young they are and how they can play, and Jalen Johnson is becoming an all-star, potentially all-NBA player at some point, they're going to be a good team. They made the right decision by getting rid of Trae Young. They made a very good decision. They moved on. These 8-year, 9-year-old veteran players who are former All NBA and who can't get back to it, and they're your team's best player, move on. And
Yo,
if you're a small market basketball team, you got to focus on developing guys who can become All NBA. It is what it is.
I think Ivy raised a good. I'm sorry, Brandon. I think Brandon raised some good points. I'm gonna pass it to Ivy. Ivy, I saw you had a lot of reactions, particularly on the Derek Queen part. I want to get your perspective on some of Brandon's points and some of the things we spoke about earlier in the conversation. Shout out to Ivy in the building.
What's good, fellas?
Uh, what's happening with you, bro?
Man, I'm cooling, man. And sorry I'm late, man. But
Good, man.
Brandon, my dog, man. Listen, I actually agree with several points you made, man. We all align in some of the things you said about how you would craft this roster. But one area that I would vehemently disagree is listen, man. Um I don't. Again, my theory is that when you play closer to that basket, there's a requisite amount of athleticism that you need to have to be successful in today's NBA that Derek Queen does not possess, man. Yes, he has some tools offensively, but man, listen, at the end of the day, man, you're going to have to be able to manufacture stops or be disruptive, block shots, and stuff like that of that nature, man, to really be impactful on the defensive end. And he just does not. He's just not built like that. His body type does not.
It's not
Uh,
conducive for it. I agree.
it,
I agree.
so, and you talking about building a championship roster, man? You have to have big physical, athletic, guys around that basket like Detroit. Like they have like the defensive infrastructure to kind of be close to contending. If you don't have that, man, you making the game much harder in terms of like really contending. I do agree with the Zion point. He's not a 1A on the championship roster. I think on the championship team, Zion is probably your third best player. He can toggle between your third and second best player. Some nights he could be second best player. Even some nights he could be your best player. But to win a championship, I think Zion has to be between like that third and that second spot in terms of hierarchy on the totem pole on the championship team.
He'll have a
Um,
Kevin Love like role
mm,
with the Cavs when he first got there. He was the third option when he got there.
yeah, I could kind of see what you like that Chris Bosh role. Like, yeah, he could,
Yeah,
he could,
he's
right.
a heck of a player, but in terms of hierarchy, we knew LeBron and Wade was 1 and 2, and
Yeah,
we knew
yeah.
LeBron and Kyrie was gonna be one in terms of getting shots.
You need for sure one person that's outright better than him, and on every other night, you need a guy that could be better than him.
Bingo.
Like,
We in agreement.
yeah,
We in agreement.
for sure. So that's my thoughts on roster building.
I think because I agree with everyone's points as it pertains to Zion being a 1A on a championship team. I think I kind of saw the writing on the wall with that for us last year because the league is just getting too talented, man. Like it just is what it is. When I kind of liken it to when I look at the Raptors, when I look at how the Raptors are built, and they're in the East. They've had the benefit of playing against a lot of injured teams this season, but generally they have several quality players, but none of them, in my opinion, are 1As. And I don't think they got really second best players on championship teams, to be honest. I think they got a bunch of like third and beyond.
Third options.
Yeah, I think they got a bunch of
Third.
third options, and each night one of them
With
steps up.
Scotty Barnes and Brandy and B. And Quincy. But it's a bunch of three options.
Yeah, and they have a quality some quality like depth rotation. I think for a Zion, I agree with Brandon and Ivy as far as like I think Zion as it currently stands, he's the only player on your team that could be the best player on the floor any given night. But in the NBA right now, you got teams that have two and three of those guys. Like at one,
Correct.
like even right now, you got to let's say Denver for example, because I like to throw let's remove the anomalies. Let's remove LeBron as the guy. Let's
Yeah.
remove Jokic because those guys are like anomalies, right? But
Yeah.
when you look at what Murray's capable of doing, what Gordon is capable of doing night to night. Look at I would even say Luka because I don't put Luka in that Jokic tier. Luka ain't done it yet. But you need guys like that who also can. Luka can be the best player on the floor any given night. Ant can be the best player on the floor any given night. But Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, those are all defense, all NBA caliber players
Right.
on a night-to-night basis. Whereas with the Pelicans, I think when you talk about roster building, especially, I think the fall off that some guys have had this year was just so dramatic that it just couldn't be predicted. And speaking especially about Poole and Herb, for example, so it's like I don't think any of us could have predicted this level of a fall off. As far as DQ is a rookie, and
Correct.
they got some ebbs and flows with DQ's game. I personally didn't expect him to struggle this much on both ends of the ball coming into the NBA. And me and I we've spoken about DQ several times, and I think ultimately they will. I hope it works out for Derek, especially since he's a Pelican. But I think it will come to the point where you find yourself in a Sengun, Jalen Green type situation where it's like, all right, look, we got to pour resources into one of these guys who's showing the most promise, and the other guy might have to go because it's funny how this season has yo-yoed. Whereas starting off the season, Fierce looks incredible, right? Then Derek, he had his run when he was looking very good. Now Fierce is having his run where he looks like, wait a minute, this dude might got it figured out. Like you know what I'm saying? He might be a little more ahead of the curve than we anticipated. Now I'm not ready to crown either one of those guys yet because they're transitioning into some very difficult positions to play on a team that does have a win now eat it. But I still think that you got to go out and add high level talent, at least one or two guys that could be the best player on any given night. With a more vast skill set. Like I, I like Sadiq Bey a lot, but the Sadiq Bey post ups are extremely overrated, and it's not a very successful brand of basketball. But the fact that Sadiq has been such a godsend this
He's
season
a
for the
hard worker.
Pelicans, he's a hard worker. He's been consistent for the most part.
Yes.
It just looks like it looks. I would say it looks better than it is. I'll say it looks better than it is. But I also think you need a coach that can maximize some of the guys that you do have. Like you need a coach that can maximize the two-man game between Zion and Trey. You need a coach that can maximize Zion. Because again, I think I'm not satisfied with a Zion going 11 for 13 from the field. I want him to go 11 for 25. But I just know that's not his game. And if you're not a player that's willing to take 20, 25 shots a night, you can't win with that kind of player on a large scale, in my opinion. You
Let me
need
ask you a question.
go ahead.
You think Zion? Do you think Zion is an all NBA, not all NBA talent, but all NBA player
Probably third team.
I could say he could
at
get up
best?
to second.
Yeah,
On the
maybe
right
second at best.
situation, right team, he could thrive. He could really thrive.
Because even Julius Randle, shout out to Julius Randle, he was all NBA. Shit, Jalen Brown was it last year? Y'all, Jalen Brown didn't make all NBA. I think they cheated. Didn't they cheat Maxey out of all NBA too? One
They
year?
may have.
Yeah,
My
I think
issue
all NBA. Yeah, he could be all NBA talent.
here's my issue with Zion. Right, he's gonna be going into season 8 next year. Right, and I think 2020, 2021 was his best year. He had like 20 something, 20, 27 points, something like that. He averaged.
I think it was 27
Um,
and 7 or something.
yeah. Yeah. I think the 2020, 2021 year. Right. Um, we're 5 seasons removed from that, and I think Zion. This is how I observe Zion. Somebody made a comparison. I don't want to steal somebody else's thunder. Somebody gave it to me. He's become more and more what I call uh Amari Stoudemire. Amari Stoudemire was so great when he had a point guard in Steve Nash that could facilitate his his talent. Zion has never had that. And I think for Zion to be what I consider an all NBA player, he's gonna need his version of that to play with that. Or like a Chris Paul like player. That makes sense? If he's never going to play with that, he will never be an All NBA player. He'll never be.
I think it makes
He'll
perfect
never
sense.
do it. So until he gets paired with that kind of combination, or if the Pelicans want to keep him, right? Is Jeremiah Fears that kind of point guard that's going to flourish that type of game? Because no disrespect to Dejounte Murray, but that's not Dejounte Murray. Dejounte Murray, can he get 8, 9 assists a game? Yeah, but does he do it naturally through the flow of how he? No, he wants to be. He has an athletic build. He plays a little more pace. He doesn't play with point guard features. He's in a point guard body, but he don't play with the point guard features I'm talking about. That's going to allow him to do that at that weight. That requires a Darren Williams. That requires a Chris Paul, a Steve Nash, somebody who's going to facilitate an offense all the time and only take open shots, not force a shot. Right? That's not who he is. Is that Jeremiah Fish? We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Right? But we know Holman could get down. But if Zion going to stay in your basketball team, for him, in order for the Pelicans to get to where they're trying to go, which is to me be a top 6 seed at some point, you're going to need an All NBA player. The question I have for the organization is that guy on this basketball team right now?
No. And the only way you're going to acquire that guy, you have to consider trading Zion. Again, I was a huge proponent and still am a huge proponent of the Pelicans trying their very best to get into this 2026 draft, because I do think there are some of those players that are franchise chasing guys this upcoming draft. But without trading Zion, I don't think, or maybe Trey, you have no pathway to getting one of those guys. And of course, trading for one of those guys is very difficult. Because people not trying to come off of superstars like that. So the only other way is you have to get back into the draft and draft one of those guys, or if not, you just you could be up shit's creek.
That sounds like Ja Morant music. Al,
Let
go ahead,
me
big dog. And then after Al,
nah
I'm gonna pass it to A1. But go ahead, Al.
nah my main question more so is because we talking about like team building and roster construction and stuff like that and acquiring a star. Do you think that the way, and this is where identifying talent comes into play, that they can acquire a star by just believing in somebody that you don't know is the guy yet. So for
Like a
example,
Maxi?
like, well, so
You mean like
not
Sadiq Bey?
no, not Sadiq Bey, because I look at Sadiq Bey more so like, and when I say this, you're gonna understand the point I'm trying to make. So like Sadiq Bey to me is not J Dub, but Sadiq Bey is the other Jalen Williams on that team,
The
right?
light skin one?
Like,
All
yeah,
right.
like a good player, you know what I mean, that you acquired that makes a difference. Like Sadiq Bey should not be a starter on your team if you're
Yeah,
trying to
like
win.
Aaron Wiggins off of OKC bench. Like he could be
Yeah.
impactful, but like the 8th, 9th, 10th man off the bench.
Yes, something like that. So my point as far as like being able to acquire a player like we talking about, like, do you take a chance on a player like Watson from Denver, or like what OKC, not OKC, what Houston did when they got Harden? Can you identify a guy on a team that may not be the guy yet, right? And he comes to your team and maybe he could be the guy. Like you put him in a situation
Uh,
and he becomes that.
I'll say this right. I think this is where the Pelicans have failed in the draft because typically in those situations you draft a bunch of okay to good prospects, and you eventually you trade them for a star level player in a small market, or you might trade one for a distressed asset. Like for example, if Dejounte was still playing at an All Star level, you would have traded Dyson Daniels for an All Star, in theory. But the fact that you missed that 8, you missed with Jax. Well, you missed with Jax, you missed with Hawkins, you missed with Kyra, you missed here, you missed that. It's like you just shot every shot you had, and you just kept missing. So when it comes time to acquire a high level guy, now you ain't got no more bullets in the chamber. Like, you know what I'm saying? If for a guy like Watson, who and I think you make a good point for a guy like Watson, he's in a is such a quality organization for us the scouting and buying distressed assets like Aaron Gordon and getting him to buy in, having the vision to turn Jokic into what he ultimately became. I really think it just takes such a special type of organization to nurture those type of players. What you got, IC?
Man, I think, man, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But I mean, the past is a past. We can't go back in time and undraft those guys. So we stuck in a situation we stuck in, and I absolutely think is a high risk but high reward type scenario of the Pelicans. Like the Pelicans should absolutely be scouring the league for under valued assets right now. And again, uh L, I'm huge on Peyton Watson. In fact, I personally would be looking to call Denver and maybe look at a trade for Watson package. I do believe Trey
You
is
said
the
Trey
better.
Murphy for
Yeah,
Watson? Okay.
Trey is absolutely the better offensive talent. But when I've seen Peyton Watson, I think he's a better two-way player, and I think it's a little bit easier to build around a two-way wing like that. And I've seen Peyton Watson when Nikola Jokic wasn't playing, when he was out with the injury, how he was able to really develop his game, and he had some really monster games. So the potential to be like a two-way wing is there. We know Trey is a great offensive player, but he still has some holes in his game defensively. So I think the Pelicans, should be looking to call like a team like a Denver and trying to get a Peyton Watson. And yeah, you might take some heat initially about, being finessed on the trade. But if it's going to better the team, if you're going to be able to get more assets, Peyton Watson and maybe some other picks and players and help, overall boost the overall roster. I think the Pelicans at this situation where they have to make extreme moves, and you cannot tout this roster out again at the beginning of next season. Expect different results, man. You have to be, they have to take some bold and drastic moves right now.
I see. That's kind of the point that I was kind of like leaning to as well. It's like you might lose in trading Trey right now, but if I could get like a Watson, if I could get Watson, Strother, and a pick, you know, that might be. And I don't know if Strother's that guy, but I'm just thinking about somebody on the roster.
Right?
Okay,
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Watson and Brown or something
Right.
like that. If I could turn Trey Murphy into Watson, Brown, and a pick, then it's kind of like, okay, we might need to consider that if we're trying to reshape this team in an image that we think can compete. Because as much as you like Trey Murphy and as much as Trey fits on everybody's rosters and stuff like that, again, while we talk about Zion being here for that many years and haven't done nothing, like Trey's been here 5 years now. It's gonna be year six.
This is season
It's
five.
gonna
This is season five.
it's
Yep.
gonna be year six for Trey next season, and it's kind of like, all right, at what point are you gonna be more than just a
A shooter.
quality a quality role player? A high level role player at the end of the day. Can Jared McCain give me what Trey Murphy gives me? I don't know. Like, but if I went to,
Wait, God, you
I'm just
Jared
I'm
McCain.
Shout out to shout, shout out to Jared McCain, man. Go Blue Devils, man.
I'm
Shout out to
just I'm just
the
throwing
Philadelphia Sixers.
I'm just
They bad.
I'm
They
throwing
bad
it out there.
John.
If I go to the Philly and say, look, here's Trey Murphy, give me Jared McCain. I'm not clearly you might not get VJ, but here's Trey Murphy for Jared McCain, and you know,
McCain in OKC.
no, I'm just saying like thinking
Yeah.
about like
Before.
like the creative
Yeah.
roster
Yeah.
building
I
that
got
you
you.
got
Yeah.
to come up with
Right.
to try and do some things with this team. But like you might have to use your good pieces to do something like that.
But L, like you have to do that on multiple fronts. Like not only with Trey, you're gonna have that. And again,
Correct.
it goes back to the Newkit situation. Like you have to do that with Zion also. Imagine if you could get Peyton Watson, you
Zion
could do that
also.
with Zion. Hey, hell, her perceived value is high around the league. For whatever reason, you do that with Herb too, and then you restructure, you recraft this roster in a better way forward where the trajectory is higher. But you cannot do this again, bro. You cannot roll this team out again.
You can't do it again. You
I
can't do that
think
again.
I
You
think
can't do it again.
it, we'll probably wrap it up in probably about another 5-10 minutes. I think generally, I think they view it for us taking the Pistons approach. Like, well, got dealt a rough hand. I was right on the brink of success. Once I get to hire my coach, and I'm gonna bring the right staff in. I'm gonna bring I'm gonna bring the right type of guys in here for us from a physical standpoint and play style standpoint. I've already hit on a couple of guys, be it Jeremiah Fears and Sadiq Bey. Probably missed with the pool situation. You know, how they started off building this team from top to bottom really said a lot to me as far as them wanting to invest in the developmental standpoint, like from the developmental staff. If you notice, one of the only staff hires that they made was hiring someone on that side of the ball. For I think he came from Portland, spent some time with them in Detroit prior to that. But I do think that they look at this team and just say, man, we had a good coach, we'd be significantly better. It's tough for me to say that they wouldn't because some of the mistakes that I see just from a coaching standpoint is just like, and for me, Borrego has forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know. But just seeing certain shit from a coaching standpoint that's low hanging fruit, it's tough to say like, damn, if you just had a competent coach, someone who was like just borderline good. I don't mean he better than Willie. I just mean borderline good. I am in a conversation for being a good coach. Like Chris Finch. I think Chris Finch is a very solid coach. I don't think he's great. I think he's very, very solid. Snyder, very, very solid. Like it's hard to, dismiss what he was able to do in Utah. Very, very solid coach. Um, but when I look at the guys the Pelicans have had, I just don't see that. And I haven't seen it for quite some time. And also take into account they supposedly looking to pour money into the stadium, looking to pour money into
They were
improving.
just funny.
Hold on, I got it. Yo, Brandon, mute your mic for me, big dog. Like looking to kind of invest in the team financially. It's hard for me to believe that they would say, all right, look, we're gonna kind of pull the plug on this shit. It ain't working anyway, and we gonna go ahead and lean into the youth movement, especially with Dumas being in his mid. Is he in his mid 60s? Well, he's an older gentleman. Dumas is an older gentleman. It's tough for me to see him wanting to oversee a rebuild or a timeline reset. L, what's your perspective on that? As far as like, again, I always point to Detroit. Like there's other teams you can point to, but I use Detroit for example because man, how people was talking about Duran and Cade was crazy a couple years ago, and the only thing that really changed was Bickerstaff.
I I think that reason right there and how close they were to that situation, regardless of if it's true or not, or
Mm-hmm.
like if their situation is closer to that or farther away. I think they believe that they're a a good to great coach away from being able to like turn this thing around quickly. Because, for example, people talking about the pace that they on now, if they were healthy, they would be significantly better next season. Well, then that's if you kept Borrego, right? Well, significantly better still only put you at around 40, like at best 40 wins, which is still not good, right? But if you thought Borrego could get you 40 wins with a relatively healthy coach, I mean with a relatively healthy roster, and you make any roster moves, which they got to make regardless. I think if you bring in a coach that they deem to believe to be better than Borrego. And while people talk about Jamal Mosley, right, because that's the name that they've been kind of tied to. I don't know how you feel about Jamal Mosley or not, but Jamal Mosley has done a good job with Orlando. Regardless of what you say about him, he's done a good job with Orlando. I don't know if he's a great coach, but is he better than Borrego? Well, if you look at the resume and everything, I guess so. So if they were able to bring in, let's say, a Jamal Mosley, I don't know if he would completely turn it around. I don't think it's like bringing in JB Bickerstaff, who was coach of the year and all of that. But if you think Borrego could get you closer to 40 wins, I can surmise that a coach Jamal Mosley could do that and then some. You still got to make roster moves either way. So I just don't think they're gonna go the tear it down route. I think they're gonna have an opportunity. I think they're gonna go get their guy first, try it out with their guy first, and then get to the point where it's like, all right, by the trade deadline, regardless of what route we decide to go, I think by the trade deadline, they'll make the decision because by next trade deadline, if they got their guy, his guy is going to either lead the rebuild or retool or whatever, or okay, we got a guy that's going to be able to manage with the players that we have that we kept or brought in or whatever the situation is. But either way, I think they go the coach route and see if it could be something similar to what happened in Detroit, which is, you know, Troy Weaver's people.
You about to say something, Moment?
No, I was just wanting to say, man, I agree with all the points you made in reference to that Detroit situation, but I cannot understate how important the last couple drafts they were for them in terms of they filling out their roster with guys like Ron Holland, guys like Asur Thompson, who's one of the premier perimeter defenders in the league that really help bring that culture of physicality and toughness around Cade, around those already physical interior bigs. Like, I think they did a good job in the draft, and I don't want to understate that. And yes, Bickerstaff deserves a ton of credit for coming in with a like-minded approach. But man, again, the lifeline of your organization is via the draft, especially in those small markets, man. If you're not in LA, you're not one of those big markets, man. You absolutely need to invest a lot into your draft process.
And I mean, that's an excellent point. Again, you look at Isaiah Stewart, really one of, I wouldn't say premier, but he's one of the better rim defenders in the league right now. You got guys like even Jalen Duren's really come along this year. Um, Highland, as you spoke, and that was a Trajan pick, but Asar Thompson, that's a Troy Weaver pick. Even Duran was considered a reach at the time. Now, he's not without his misses, of course. He drafted Killian Hayes. Depending on how you felt about his college tape, well, not college tape, but his pre-NBA tape. You can say, hey, it made all the sense in the world from the film, but once it got to the NBA, the shit just didn't work out. Jaden Ivey, that's another thing that kind of, you know, you could have varying opinions about that just based on how he was injured. Ultimately. But I think as far as I trust Troy Weaver's eye for talent in some instances, especially when it comes to like rotational players. Again, drafted Sadiq Bey had some ebbs and flows in Detroit, but ultimately was a quality guy. In Atlanta, I thought he played really well. Was in line for a nice contract extension before getting hurt. Ironically, versus the Pelicans, I'm sure Troy Weaver had something to do with him going to Washington. Ultimately, Troy Weaver and Sadiq Bey end up in New Orleans. I'm sure that was not a coincidence. I'm not one of the people who think Troy Weaver was. I'm sorry. I'm not one of the people who think Sadiq Bey was a throw-in. I think Sadiq Bey was targeted and they sought him and brought him to New Orleans on purpose. I don't think that was like, whoa, you could throw him in for salary purposes. Now, I think they went and got Sadiq Bey. So that's another guy who's proven to be a win. Bryce McGowan, they brought Bryce McGowan into the organization. Looked like that worked out well for him. Now, and the fears seems to be working out well. The Derek Queen thing and the way they went about it, that's just going to be a huge question for years. Ultimately, what they end up doing going into this next draft is really going to say a lot because, like, I'll ask the panel here. If hypothetically speaking, let's say they like, all right, look, Herb, we gotta get younger and stronger on that perimeter, dog. And they ultimately end up moving her for like let's say pick 17. Something like let's be generous. Pick 14. Enter the lottery. Pick 14. And they draft, perimeter guy. I can't really I'm not familiar with late lottery prospects right now. But maybe you'll have some names. If they were to move her for a late lottery pick and end up bringing somebody in, would you feel more confident about their roster building moving forward in their decision making? And maybe you can give us a name, Ivy, if you're familiar with some of the late lottery prospects coming out this year.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it's one lottery prospect, late lottery prospect is going to initially push the needle. Of course, there are going to be other moves that need to be made via free agency, even via some trades. But one guy that I would take a good look at late lottery. It actually isn't a perimeter player. It's a hybrid 4-5 guy. A New Orleans native, Chris Sinak. I
Okay.
think if you're gonna
Our
go,
guy.
yeah, if you're gonna go with the Derek Queen
Wait,
at
my
the
bad.
four,
My bad. Y'all think Chris come out this year?
he may stay another year,
Okay.
maybe, but a lot of people, especially due to his recent conference play, he's been very targeted by a lot of teams. So it's possible that he could come out. Um, but I do think that's a guy that you would kind of consider. He's a stretch four, like hybrid five guy, that could space the floor for like a Derek Queen if you decide to go that route. He's become very good on the boards. He's still young and has a ton of room to grow. So I mean, I think that's somebody like the Pelicans might want to take a look at, like late lottery, if they decide to move on from Herb, and try and get some more perimeter defense via free agency or maybe in the second round, something like that.
I have a thought, I guess, because I've been thinking or tinkering around with the idea like how do you make this roster better with like the kinds of moves that they're possibly gonna make. One, I think, and I like as much as I like Eves and Carlo. If I could turn Eves and Carlo into Chris, I'd do it. You know what I mean? So like this Eves, and I could be wrong, but they were possibly talking about Eves going for a first round pick or something like that. Wasn't that this during this season that
Well, it had got to the point where like he had put together some good games, and then he started asking for a first round pick. Initially, they wasn't though. But go ahead.
okay. So I would my thought is again targeting because I don't imagine that they'll blow it up. And I think if they do move a player, it'll be Herb, even though they probably like slash love Herb. But if I could turn Herb Jones into light skinned Jalen Williams, and something else off of that roster, and it's not even to say that OKC would do it, but I'm just throwing names out there of like the kind of players I think that this team need surrounding or supplementing the roster that would completely turn it around, or not completely turn it around, or at least make it more competent. Like example, a player that I think is could possibly be, and I don't know if you do this because you got fears on the roster, but if you could somehow get AJ Mitchell and Jalen Williams from them, I will consider making that type of move because I think AJ got you know like he OKC not gonna be able to keep everybody, but AJ Mitchell looks like the kind of guy who's gonna be a guy. So you target like AJ Mitchell and Jalen Williams. If you bring them in and you can turn, let's say, Misi and Carlo into Chris Sinek, something like that, and now you're looking at a roster that looks like I don't know, Zion, Trey, Dejounte, and I'm still targeting a player like we don't know what Sabonis is gonna look like this season. Like, can you turn Jordan? Like, you have to turn Jordan Poole's money into something competent this year. That's 30 million of who knows what. So if I could turn Jordan Poole into something, get a player like AJ, Jalen Williams, turn Misi and Carlo into like a Chris on top of the players that you have and a new coach, I think you reshape the foundation at least of what you have. Because you're talking about like Zion, maybe Trey, you know what I mean? Zion, Trey, DeJounte, because I don't think you'd have to move DeJounte and something like that. Sadiq Bey, you still have Fierce Queen, AJ, Jalen, like Chris. You start talking about a roster of some players who could do more things than like the limited players that you have, or the players that are only good on one side of the ball.
That's really why I wish we saw more flashes from Derek Queen this year. Because when I think about moving Carlo and moving Eve, and I don't think neither one of them are like bona fide starters, there's just too many scenarios in my mind to where Derek Queen don't play at all. Like, that's the fucked up part about what I've seen. Like, it's just sad that, cause I thought Derek Queen yesterday had a really good game, like for him. And that's the part that like bothers me. That I was like, well, for based on what we've seen lately from Derek, this was a hell of a game. You know what I'm saying? And that's the tough part. Like when I think about, man, I need to move on from Carlo because I only said it because a couple of years ago it was like, man, we need to go get Santi Aldama, or we need a Bohan Bogdanovich type, a large forward that can stretch the floor. And you see Carlo running the court, hitting threes, getting blocks, Eve getting 4 or 5 blocks, and you just see the pace and the effort they play with. And then it's like, if you follow me on the live stream, it's like when Derek checked into the game, everybody in the chat like, oh well, there goes the lead, and it started off as a joke, but then it became like actual journalism and reporting because that lead really do be going away a lot of the time. So that's why I'm just like, shit. Uh, go ahead,
So
go ahead.
so as much as I understand and agree with that to a degree, I also think Misi, and as much as I like Carlo, I prefer to keep Carlo over Misi. But like those two players, like I think we like them, but I don't think they really move the needle too much for you. You know what I mean? So if not granted they cheap and all of that, so I get that. But again, since Misi's been here, you've been playing losing basketball. Like legitimately, his 2 seasons, you've been like two of the worst seasons you've had. And he's been unfortunately like he started 76 games year one or something. Like he started majority of year one. And it's not to say that it's not his fault, but like he's a rotational big at
Yeah, that's
best.
how I view him as well.
Carlo's not shooting with the volume of a player like you know what I mean? Like as much as we like Carlo being able to space the floor, he's still only shooting one or two of them bitches a game. I could see if he got in the game and he had, you know, like somebody from Boston's mindset where he was letting that whole fly and being able like 5 or 6 of them a game, then it would be different. But if I could consolidate them as much as I like them, if I could turn them into a Chris and like think about it this way. If if we had a Khalil Ware type, which I don't think Chris necessarily is Khalil Webb, but let's say that's one of the comps for him or something similar to that. Neither one of them will be on the floor anyway. Like neither one of them will be on the floor. Like that dude would do everything
with
anyway.
with Chris, do you think you could find yourself in a scenario this based on like how the West is looking for as bigs or just the league generally translating more into larger bigs? Do you think you could find yourself in a situation where you're saying, "Damn, I still need a center because he's better at the 4 than the 5," or do you think like his game just translates to the
No,
5?
I I think you will still need a center, but I think you need another big body anyway. So like in this scenario, you just need as much talent as possible. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like let's take Minnesota for a second. Minnesota had Cat and still went got Rudy and still had Nas Reed and still like you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you can bring in Chris and have Queen, and that don't mean it's like, hey man, we still might need to go get like OKC had Chet and still went got Hartenstein, and then Jalen like light skinned Jalen played a big, and then they drafted Thomas Sorber. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think even if you get those kinds of players, you need more difference makers on your team. Like I would like a scenario where if let's say you were able to draft because Queen has shown some flashes, right? Like I know you want him to show more, but he's shown some flashes. But if you have Queen and you could throw out a Chris and you had the, just again, I'm just throwing out the name like Jared Allen, you'd be like, all right, that big rotation is kind of solid. But like nobody in the league gives a fuck about me seeing Carlo as your big rotation, no matter how well how well they play. Like Carlo doesn't shoot the ball with enough volume
Right.
for you to really feel threatened by. It's like, all right, yeah, he can shoot. It's like, yeah, but he only shoot one or two of them a game. So what?
I think you make an excellent point, man. I just wish that I was higher on Queen because even like aside from Allen, I just don't like even let's say it was Chris, Allen. Let's say Chris and Allen was my front court. It's like I I just see so many scenarios to where I'm like, Derek, you might not play tonight, dog. Like, and that's the part that really just it makes like as much as people talk about the Zion shit and with his injuries, it's crazy. But man, at least when Zion played, it was like, all right, this is a talented guy. With Derek is talented, of course, but it's just so many scenarios to where I'm like, he got 13 minutes tonight, and I mean, if he played more, I don't think it would have helped. I think it would have. I might have been in a worse scenario, honestly. I might have been in a worse situation. So it's just like I almost want to build my front court like Derek not here.
I would. Like I'm not I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I would.
Yo, I was just about to say that, bro. Like, he's the biggest variable in this whole thing. Again, when I talk about nuking it, like he's a part of that equation. Like, I'll be prepared to take the heat for it. But he's such a tricky build, like, and like we just got, I don't say got out of because Zion's still on the roster, but Zion is such a tricky build with his skill set and his body type, and you get a same dilemma in Derek Queen. And so now you have to really, really like be an engineer and craft this roster around his deficiencies and weaknesses, and that's a very tricky thing to do. And like, don't even like again. I never would have made the trade personally, but now we here. And you have to entertain a thought of possibly moving him and getting some value, especially on teams that are high who think he's in a suboptimal situation. I could see a situation where he thrives in maybe like a San Antonio next to Wemby, but you have to be uh put that on the table. Possibly shopping Derek Queen because it's just such a tricky build around him, man.
I I'm just saying I'm with you. Like I don't I think in this point in this like part of where they are, they can't afford to like say, hey, like they can't make the same mistake that Griffin made. Griffin made the mistake of we need a shooter, so we're going to get a shooter. And then
Hmm.
you know what I mean? You need
Right.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need
You need
to
shooting, but you don't
yes.
need a
Right.
shooter.
Right.
Yes, you need to go get players that play. That's why I'm looking at players like a lot of people may not like Jalen Williams, light skinned Jalen, but Jalen on extended minutes looks like he looks like what Sadiq might look like. And that's not to say that he's the greatest player, but if you could turn that into a rotational player, your team is better. Peyton Watson on extended minutes has shown to be a very good player. So like you need to target players like that. And it don't matter who on your roster right now. Obviously, they've shown that they don't give a fuck about you benching people who make money. They're allowing them to bench Jordan Poole who make 30 million. If you willing to bench Jordan Poole who make $30 million, you can go out and target players that like you gotta win your minutes. You gotta fight for your spot, which is why as much as I like Fizz and I think he's showing promise, I'm targeting a player like AJ Mitchell because I look at AJ and I'm like, dog, this dude might be one of the ones, you know.
Mm.
So that would be my goal moving forward. It's kind of like you don't have the luxury to say, um, well, I got Derek. I can't go get a
Right.
talented player. You have to assume we gotta throw as much like you gotta be able to flood a team with talent. That's what OKC do to you. Essentially, they hit you in waves. Right? Like you gotta deal with my starters, then my backups come in and they busting ass. And then, like you need to be able to do that. And not just against teams like OKC, like all of the good teams in the league are made like that.
You know, it's man, it's such a crazy situation for the Pelicans specifically because with them kind of wanting to win, it's hard to develop multiple young guys at the same time, right? That's why ultimately I think they're gonna have to decide between Fears and Queen at a certain point, and because I think Queen needs a very special set of circumstances to succeed, whereas I think Fears kind of just get it how you live. But I get Elvin point totally because I'm like at a certain point, man, you just gotta add talent. You need players that can play and they're skilled in multiple ways. With the OKC approach, eventually they're gonna have to consolidate if they wanna, you know, that they might not be thinking about no damn dynasty or no shit like that. But if they ever do want to go get another star caliber player, they probably have to consolidate at some point, right? Like they probably have to
Let
have.
me not to
Go ahead.
cut you off, but let me just throw this out there. I'm not saying that OKC won't be good or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
if Tyrese Halliburton don't tear the Achilles and somehow Indiana wins, like it
They trade for a star, yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like you
yeah.
you might be in a position of where OKC is like, you know what? We gonna get off some of these picks and go get another player. They made the move for Jared McCain. They didn't have to make the move for Jared McCain. Who's to say if they somehow don't get upset in the playoffs this year? Because playoffs and how playoffs shake out like determine a lot going into the all season. Teams who were like if Detroit somehow loses, let's say Atlanta sneaks into the playoffs, makes the playoffs, and Atlanta knocks off Detroit in round one or something like that. There's an 8 seed
Mm-hmm.
beating the one. Detroit got to look at their roster and say, well, what the hell else do we need to do? Do you take that opportunity to try and like grab some of their players? So it's just the season is long, but you need to look at and target players that just makes you better no matter
Mm-hmm.
no matter where they at because like until the season is over we have no idea what teams are going to look like. Last point I'll make too,
Mm-hmm.
people knew Boston was going to have to blow it up, right?
Shit, at least we thought so. Cause
Well,
them
but
motherfuckers balling out
they
this year.
retooled, they
Right.
retooled the hell out of their roster. The roster they had last year is completely different. The roster they had, you know what I mean, this summer. So like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of teams that are still competing that maybe didn't construct like your window because of how they did the CBA, your windows are different as well. Like it's not the
It's shorter
same.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not the same like financial landscape that we once lived in when people didn't mind going into the tax and stuff like that. It wasn't as many penalties. So like the way that we're moving forward in like the NBA, a team like the Pelicans, if you're gonna be aggressive, like quote unquote they said they were, you have to, and shout out to IC and you too, Chaz, like you have to identify the talent because you don't have like this year you don't have the pick, but you do have picks and stuff in the future. But you have to identify those difference makers potentially on other teams and be able to acquire them, even if it means you might have to give up some of the players you don't want to.
Bro, you know one guy who I would target, bro, and this is a high risk, high reward target for acquisition is Derek Lively. Though I know people are Derek Lively, but like, bro, I'm telling you, if this dude can string together about 3, 4 seasons of health, and that's asking a lot. I'm only talking about playing 60 games, right? That dude in a rotation with a couple other bigs, because the front court is already kind of crowded. But if you get a buy low guy like that, because that's kind of what happened with McCain. McCain was super solid rookie year, got hurt, came back overweight, had another injury, and they was able to get him for cheap. But I look at Derek Lively like, man, you're not gonna play this year. I know I can trade for you for Herb or like a protected first or something. And if it work out, awesome. If it don't work out, oh well. I mean, he was a super quality home run swing.
Those are exactly the kind of players you need to target.
Right.
That's exactly the style. Like Derek Lively, when he was pick 11, like
Something you have to believe so.
yeah, so a lottery pick, 7 foot, went to Duke, skill set, played in the finals. You saw he could play a role, had some quality coaching under J Kidd. Like those are the kind of players you need to go get to kind of help reshape your organization. So like if you told me that they went and got Derek Lively for, I don't know, like if you got Derek Lively and what's like the name of guard off they bench or like one of their wings or something. Like let's say they wanted to get off PJ. I don't know how much they just re-signed PJ for, but like let's say they wanted to get off PJ Washington, right? And like kind of free up some money because they're getting ready to go through a rebuild. And you can do Jordan Poole for PJ and Lively. You do it. You do it. Do that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to Chaz, to that point, man, but you have to make those moves like now, or like well, when you can trade in the early in the off season while his value is suppressed. I remember very vividly, man. Last off season, man, everybody was on Jalen Johnson about his injury and kind of trying to predict what he might be in the future. And I was like, listen, man. Now is the time to go after Jalen Johnson, very aggressively while his value is suppressed. And because I saw the window, the writing on the wall in terms of his ability, his potential, with his size and his skill set, what he could be. And again, you have to identify those type of guys while their value is suppressed and go after them and hope and pray that they pan out that you how you envision them panning out. But Derek Lively is absolutely a great target that you mentioned, and the Pelicans should absolutely consider that option.
Like as far as I see mentioned, I'm gonna pass it to my dog Kello. It's like, look, man, when you talk about guys who've had hot streaks, kind of like Watson, kind of like the tear Jalen Johnson was on last year. Sometimes, yeah, it's a Mike James situation. Sometimes, sometimes it's a Mike James situation, and you get left hole in the bag. But other times, shit, look at Jalen Johnson now. These are guys that you probably never have an opportunity to get via free agency. Watson, he probably knows his own value at this point. Probably wouldn't be able to get him free and via free agency. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to have a TJ Warren situation. You don't want to have a Solomon Hill situation where a motherfucker strung together a couple good games. But when you're in this type of market, man, you got to go for that home run swing at times. Kellogg, what's happening with your homie?
Man, what's good with y'all, man? What's good, man? Uh, you know, introduce myself for a little bit. Shifty know me, but I mean, I stay in New Orleans. I'm from Louisiana, but I'm a Thunder fan. Supersonics actually, but you know what I'm saying? I went with the relocation and shit. And I mean, this been a good space, and like I go to the games, you know what I'm saying? I go to the Pelican games because I mean, I'm not gonna be fucking, you know what I'm saying, hitting planes and shit and going to Oklahoma City. But I've been to a few OKC games this season and the Pelicans and like I want to ask like I I, I want to get y'all opinions on what y'all want the team to be because I see it from a Thunder fan that like we have the identity of what Sam created in 2008 and to now that like development, defense, high IQ, passing, moving, just high IQ players and best just acquiring the best type of players no matter what the position is because like I mean, when we did the Paul George trade and shit, I mean, we had Shea, we had CP, we had Dennis, and even when we let those guys go, we still was the drafting best player available. Like Jalen Williams, like dark skin, like J Dub, he coming out of Santa Clara, he was a point guard, and then we go ahead and get Casey Wallace. You know what I'm saying? We traded the pick from Dallas to get Casey Wallace, and they get Derek Lively, and we got guards and lots of guards, and we doubled down on guards. We got Josh Giddey, then we traded Josh Giddey, and it just I want to see what y'all think. Like, what y'all think the Pelicans should have identity is? Because, like, in my opinion, like while seeing it from the outside and just going to the games, I think the Pels need to form just some type of identity to get that starter, like to get up and just figure it out. Because, like, y'all have a lot of talent. Like, y'all have a lot of talent. Like, it just haven't been developed and like the culture have been infused with positivity and shit. So like I want to see what y'all think.
I, I think that's a great question, bro. And I'm gonna be real brief with it. Like, I think for what you pointed out about OKC's willingness to target high level talent and just get like you got Carmelo, KD, Westbrook, just Oladipo, all these names associated with OKC. And it's just now in this recent iteration of the team that they've been like extremely successful as far as winning the championship. I think they were just never satisfied. I think too often with the Pelicans, and I think I see it more with Troy Weaver now as far as his willingness to like, man, I don't care about fit. I don't care who already on the team. I'm going to get Derek Queen because I think he's good. Whether I agree with it or not, that he went and did it. Jeremiah Fez, I'm going to get him because I think, he's the future at guard. Whether I agree with it or not, he went and did it. I think for too long, the Pelicans have said, well, I already got a player like that. I don't need more, or this is what I need. Let me go target this thing. I need a point guard. I'm gonna draft Dyson. I need some shooting. I'm gonna draft. Well, I need a shooter, movement shooter, quote unquote. I'm gonna draft Jordan Hawkins instead of just going and get talent. Go and get high level talent, high pedigree players. And I think you look at it now, it just that's why the bench looks so shallow at times because it's like what happens if that don't work out? What happens if that guy who had that one skill that you drafted him for isn't that good at it at the NBA level? Now what you gonna do? And I think that's where the Pelicans have failed. I would like to see them abandon that mentality. And I'm gonna land my plane there.
Man, go ahead, Al.
I'll be real quick as well. I just think that the because you talked about like forming the identity, which is the key to all of that. I think Chaz spoke on it about Troy being willing to just take the best player or like try by any means to get the best player. I think that's their mindset. But as far as the identity and stuff goes, I think they're gonna look to get a coach that embodies whatever like style of play that they want this off season moving forward because and shout out to Rich Paul. I don't know if y'all seen like his power with Max Kellerman, but one of the things he said is like the new big three is, your president or GM or whatever, your coach, and then whoever your star player is, and then you kind of go around that. So like in this situation, I don't know if you feel Joe and Troy are a star or whatever, but regardless of what you think of, whatever you think of them, right? Your next iteration in that you have to find your coach because the great coach makes lesser players better, makes great players greater. So like and again, I don't know if they're gonna find the guy, but this is an opportunity for them to be able to say, all right, like when OKC moved on and they hired Mark Dagnall, like they fully believed that Mark Dagnall and gave him the runway to start shaping the OKC identity into what they wanted it to be. And then I think if you're gonna if you're going to look to be successful in the future, that's your next step. Like more like not more so than the players per se, but because in the NBA, like your players make a huge difference, right? But in a market like New Orleans, man, that is tough to get players in general. I think you need to put extreme value on the coaching right now because you are trying to build and mold and create some kind of identity, not just for the players that's here, but like a lot of you hear people talk about, oh, we want a team that represents the city and shit like that. It's like, well, go get you a guy who has a vision and a mindset and like somebody that Troy and them believe in. So when he says, look, I want this kind of guy, they're all on the same page. Because right now you can't tell me that Troy Weaver, if they do decide to hire James Borrego, that they're all on the same accord and whatnot. Like that, like James Borrego's style of play like historically doesn't really fit like the Joe Dumars style. So it's kind of like you gotta like all those things gotta coincide for you to have the perfect marriage. Last thing, and then I'll pass it, and then I'm done. You saw a championship organization, and when I mean that, I mean Denver fire a championship coach right before the playoffs because he wasn't getting along with a goddamn GM. That goes to show you how much like everybody needs to be in sync for you to be for you to compete at the highest level. So, with all of that being said, Joe and Troy need to go get their guy that they believe in, that they're going to be willing to spend Gail's money on. Because what would be the point of them going to throw this team out if they don't believe? that Borrego or whoever the guy is gonna be able to fully maximize. They just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think when I really study, man, a lot of the top general managers and decision makers, man, and chief amongst them, Sam Presti. And again, what he did was the move that really put that organization over the top. Happened years ago, man, when he allowed traded Paul George for a lesser known, undervalued asset in SGA. Right, and that was the move that set up all the other dominoes for them to get a catalyst, get a guy that they could build around and have a championship team around. I don't believe that guy is currently on the Pelicans team. I believe they have to again target an undervalued asset, somebody that they could probably build a championship team around. Get that guy and then start to craft a roster around that guy. But until that happens, I mean, whoever the coach is, yes, you can start developing good habits and culture and things like that. But you're never going to be a team that is going to be close to contention without having the proper framework in place. And until that happens, we just going to continue to have these type of conversations about what ifs and scenarios and blueprints. But they have to get a guy that they could truly build around and go put all the chips in. I think Zion could have been that guy, but now where he is in his career, by the time they get the proper pieces around him, he'll be probably too old, too injured to really maximize his production. I mean, I think you got to have the Con Canupos, Steph Curry type guys, a ton of shooting around him. It's just too late at this point for him. So I think they got to identify undervalued asset and go get him.
I'll say this too, man, and we're gonna wrap it up here, man. Shout out to everybody that joined. Shout out to all the listeners, everybody that got up and spoke, man. Appreciate all y'all, man. And I'm gonna upload this on the YouTube channel later. Like Ivy said, and shout out to my dog Kellogg too. And I want to give a special shout out to Troy Weaver for helping build that first iteration of OKC. Again, no matter how you slice it, you gotta come see New Orleans, no matter how you slice it. But one of my favorite things about OKC, man, is that they never scared. They traded for Gordon Hayward, shit didn't work out, whatever. That was a situation where you traded for Gordon Hayward to maybe eventually flip him. It didn't work out, you moved on, whatever. But they never scared to go get somebody. Traded for Caruso, pretty much. You just gave up Giddy, and Giddy's played well in Chicago. But people was like, damn, you got Caruso for next to nothing. He's an older guy, never really made much money. Gave him that big contract, and he balled out. He won you several games in the finals with his play. Um, Extended Lou Dort, stuck with Lou Dort. It worked out. You know what I'm saying? J Dub worked out with Chet. Chet was injured his first year, came back. He paired, it ultimately worked out as well. They were just never scared to keep going for it, keep stacking talent. Similar to Milwaukee. Milwaukee hasn't worked out, with Dame and Kuzma, a couple of those guys. It didn't really work out. Even with Cam Thomas, it hasn't worked out thus far. But that's another team that's like, we have who we believe in place. We got a Giannis, we got a Shea, we got a guy that's like a guy for real, and we gonna try everything in our power to make it work out, and we gonna keep going for it. And I would like to see, for one, the Pelicans identify who that guy is and maximize around that guy and stop holding these bullets in the chamber, man. You got to spend that money.
One
Go ahead, Al.
one last thing, Chaz, to kind of emphasize your point. I know you say you got to go, but the one thing that OKC also did, not just acquiring people, bruh, like you said, you know how many great players that they like got off of or just
Bro.
let go,
the
like,
list insane, bro. They
bruh,
got so many people that like we don't even think about Jeff Green, Sabonis, like just dudes who had like
bruh.
a cup of coffee in OKC.
Chris
You forget
Paul, like you said, Chris Paul, Schroeder was there, Serge there and gone, Harden there and gone, Russ there and gone. I mean, you don't just let KD walk, but KD walk, you
Enos
know,
Cantor was nice at one time, son.
yeah,
Enos Cantor was there when he was good.
gone. So it's just that when you think about just to like just reemphasize all of y'all points, man, dog. That particular team was so and like not waiting. Like Paul George was there. Paul George coming off the MVP season. It was like, yeah, you could go. We'll do it over. You know what I mean? Kind of all right. We gotta move. They were not afraid
to be bad or whatever. Even when they were bad, they weren't even really bad. But like they were not afraid to make moves that I guess would scare somebody or whatever. And they just moved forward and dealt with it because it was the best business thing to do or the best path forward, even if it took time. And you see the benefits of that.
To even taking a shot at a guy like Usman Jing, who I thought was going to be pretty solid, to be honest. You just and I think what OKC did, when you think about all the legendary players they've had in that organization, it also goes to show you there's no one way to do it right. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to get lucky sometimes. You're gonna have to break some eggs. You had a team with Carmelo and Paul George. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it didn't work out. Russell Westbrook, Carmelo, and Paul George, and it didn't work out. And that just goes to show you, sometimes it ain't all about talent. The recipes gotta fit, it gotta work out, and it takes some luck as well, and timing also. But man, again, shout out to everybody in the building, man. Me and L, we do this once a week. Appreciate my dog IC joining. Michael Morgan always. My dog Kevin's joining. Appreciate you, Kellogg, also, man. Shout out to everybody. And we're gonna wrap it up here. Pelicans play tomorrow. If I'm not mistaken, they play the Clippers, then they play Thursday again, right? They back to
Yeah,
back,
they
right,
got the
L?
Clippers on a back to back, both
All right.
nights.
So we're gonna see what happened with my dog Ben Mather, and hopefully Ben Mather and take the night off, man. That's one guy I wish the Pelicans would have brought in, but it is what it is. But yeah, man, y'all have a safe evening. I'm gonna re-upload this if you missed it. If you missed the beginning, I'm gonna re-upload this on the YouTube channel and share the link. But y'all have a safe evening, man, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.